You felt it before. Maybe it was subtle, easy to dismiss. A dinner with friends where you laughed a little too much at something that didn't really feel funny. A moment in bed where you held back what you really wanted. A conversation at work where your voice lowered just enough to keep the peace. You smiled, you nodded, you listened. You were agreeable, supportive, considerate. And afterward, no one complained. No one rejected you. You were a good man. But something inside you was missing. You don't remember when you first learned that niceness was the goal. It didn't come in one clear message. It came in layers. Be polite, be calm. Don't raise your voice. Always consider others. Don't take up too much space. Don't be too angry. Don't be too silent. Don't be too much. So you complied. You learned to be safe, to be soft, to be acceptable. And in that learning, you began to forget something ancient, something wild, something powerful. Carl Jung called it the masculine archetype, but not the cardboard version, not the one plastered on movie posters or sold through hollow bravado. He meant something deeper. The solar energy of clarity, direction, purpose, will. And he also warned, repress that energy, and it doesn't disappear. It becomes shadow. That's the tragedy of the nice guy. He's not actually kind. He's repressed. He's disconnected from his own instincts, his own edge. He's agreeable, yes, but not alive. And deep down, part of him knows this. Jung's idea of the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted, is especially relevant here. The nice guy becomes addicted to the mask. He curates his image like a publicist for his own emotions. He's careful, measured, harmless. But underneath that mask is not peace. It's rage, not strength, but resentment. He doesn't yell, but he simmers. He doesn't confront, but he distances. He doesn't say what he wants, and then he resents you for not knowing. This is the dark gift of repression. It keeps things quiet until they rot. And the worst part, the world rewards him. He's so respectful, they say. He's such a good listener. He's always there for everyone. Meanwhile, he's nowhere for himself. James Hillman said that the soul is not interested in safety. It wants myth. It wants heat. It wants contradiction. And the nice man's life, no matter how socially praised, lacks that fire. Because in his quest to be good, he gave up being whole. Wholeness requires conflict, integration, a willingness to say no, a capacity to stand in discomfort, not just your own, but others. Because true masculinity is not about being liked. It's about being true. The man who lives only to be accepted becomes invisible in the process. He flattens his emotions, sterilizes his desire, hides his wildness, and calls it maturity. But there's nothing mature about self-erasure. You might think this is just about personality. Some men are just more sensitive, more gentle. And that's true. But gentleness is not the same as niceness. One is a quality of the soul. The other is a mask worn by fear. There's a difference between being kind and being performative, between caring and codependence, between emotional intelligence and emotional suppression. Many nice men aren't actually calm. They're terrified of confrontation, terrified of rejection, terrified of their own anger. They weren't taught to feel it, to hold it, to channel it cleanly. So they buried it. But buried fire doesn't die. It just smolders, quietly, secretly, until it leaks into relationships, into sex, into work. It becomes sarcasm, withholding, passive aggression, withdrawal. It's the shadow of the nice guy. He becomes manipulative, not because he's evil, but because he doesn't know how to ask for what he wants directly. He doesn't feel allowed to want. So he plays games. He guilt trips, he overgives, and then punishes you for not reciprocating. He builds a cage of silence and calls it self-control. And the saddest part? He thinks this is what women want, what people want, what society wants. And maybe it is, but not at the cost of his soul. Robert Bly, in Iron John, wrote about the wild man, the hairy figure locked in a cage, buried deep in the psyche. He represents the raw, unfiltered masculine, the part of a man that hasn't been civilized into submission. The story is simple. A boy finds the key to the cage. He opens it, he frees the wild man, and in doing so, he begins his journey into manhood. But in our world, that cage isn't metaphorical. It's cultural, social, familial. From a young age, boys are taught to suppress that wildness. Don't cry, don't rage, don't risk, don't fail. Be nice, be small, be manageable. And so the wild man stays locked up, and the boy grows into a man who is exhausted, unsure, disconnected, numb. Jung would say this is the result of not individuating, of living a life that conforms instead of transforms. Individuation is the process of becoming who you truly are, not who the world told you to be. And you can't become whole if you're only ever nice. Nice is a coping strategy. Wholeness is a reckoning. You want to be loved? Stop trying to be likable. You want to be respected? Stop trying to be agreeable. You want to be desired? Stop performing softness and start embodying depth. Because the truth is, most people don't trust nice men. They don't know what's underneath. They feel the disconnect, the inconsistency, the subtle self-abandonment. And women especially, women feel it in their bones. They want to feel you. Not just your kindness, your direction, your presence, your grounded no, your embodied yes. They don't need you to be dominant, but they do need you to be there, rooted in your spine, not floating in your guilt. And ironically, the more you repress your masculine edge, the more you turn it into something toxic. Repressed power doesn't disappear, it distorts. It becomes control, coercion, collapse. That's the paradox. The man who fears being too much becomes the man who is never enough. Not because he lacks value, but because he lacks truth. You were never meant to be nice. You were meant to be whole, to hold both your fire and your softness, to be fierce without being cruel, to be vulnerable without being weak, to be a storm and a shelter at once. And that version of you, it doesn't emerge through approval. It's born in solitude, in silence, in saying the thing you've been afraid to say, in holding the boundary that terrifies you, and letting go of the mask that got you this far, but won't take you any further. And maybe right now, as you hear this, something in you is stirring. Not rage, not inspiration, but something older, a quiet recognition that the ache you've always carried wasn't a weakness, it was a signal that your life, built on being liked and needed, is too small for the man you're meant to be. Because niceness is not love. It's not truth. It's not power. It's a costume, a strategy, a survival mechanism. Real masculinity isn't about making everyone comfortable. It's about making yourself whole. And yes, that path is hard. You will disappoint people. You will stop saying yes when your soul screams no. You will lose approval and gain something far more sacred, yourself. You will start to feel your spine again, your direction, your edge. You will stop shrinking, stop asking for permission, stop apologizing for simply being. And in that moment, when you are no longer trying to be good, but choosing to be whole, you will become something unshakable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real, and real is rare.